2020, August 30th, 8:40 a.m. Now, so it's really easy to find in documentation this pattern of going into a place, dispatching the people who won't cooperate, destroying the infrastructure you don't like, keeping the infrastructure you do like, but remodeling it slightly, which is what Glen Eyrie is. It's a remodel of a previous structure that's decades, if not centuries old. There's also another centuries old structure called that had its name changed to the Bancroft School after 1880 1890. But that was a copy, mathematically speaking, that the Bancroft School, although that's not its original name, that school was a copy of Versailles, which means Polytechnic College, period. That college was a backup campus from Leonardo da Vinci, who had built phase one of Versailles in the 1460s, and was a fully up and operating school for 200 years before Louis the 14th went, hey, I want to make this is fantastic and wonderful place. I want to make this my palace. Period. And that palace, the Palace of Versailles, lasted for about 90 to 110 years before it was seized by the Free Corps. Although the Prussian paramilitary organization that seized France was not. They did not call themselves Free Corps. They name changed to Libertine, period. So the Prussian Libertine have been in charge of France since about 1792, 91, somewhere in there. Period. They had been in charge of the Mississippi since about late 16, early 17s. They had been in charge of that area, slowly conquering each city by each city. New Orleans, St. Louis, and that whole strip had been slowly conquered and turned into Libertine French. For the century previous to 1790, when the Libertine French finally were able to seize control over Paris and France and force Louis the 16th and his family to evacuate, including Marie Antoinette. Period. Of course, Marie Antoinette. There's direct evidence of this within the diplomatic cables between the Libertine government and her brother, cousin, nephew, that the current emperor, Holy Roman Emperor of Germany, Prussia-ish, he knew where his relatives were, and the Libertines said, pay us all kinds of money, and we'll give you her. We're gonna kill Louis, but we'll give her and her kids and such back to you. And he's like, why would I want to buy them back? So he sounds extremely cold and heartless, unless you know that the people who were in custody were body doubles, were royal body doubles, were Praetorians who had been paid to be body doubles, period. Mostly royal body doubles are people who are either paid to do it, live in the lap of luxury until something happens, period, or are people who are replaced by people who are dying, who are semi-close enough facsimile, that with the right makeup, with the right special effects, with the right in wearing the king's clothes, the king or queen, the royal person's clothes, they can pass from a distance. They can pass for them, so therefore it's fine and dandy. Period. Well, those people are usually dying of some kind of a horrible disease, cancer, syphilis, the like. They have death sentences. So volunteering to live in the lap of luxury until you die or you are executed, not a bad idea. Plus the fact that execution is a whole lot better of a death than the slow death from some of those diseases, period. So it's kind of all upsides for someone who's dying, period. So the royal family went to go to Colorado Springs, would be called Colorado Springs for almost a full century, from the late 1780s to when it was semi-officially called Colorado Springs in the 18 middle to late 1870s. So there's a give or take about a 10-year gap between there. Period. And there's nothing to say that the French royal family had not in the previous decades had not started to send people and supplies and infrastructure to the headwaters of the Arkansas River as a backup in the years and decades beforehand. So there's no there is a century-long gap there. Period. Into that infrastructure, Father Franklin arrived a century later, in the late 1800s. He arrives, and he arrives with mountains of money and permission to build a mission in, well, more Abbey mission. He arrives to build one of those with a crew of nuns in tow, and he builds Miramont Castle. Now, he doesn't build Miramont Castle where he wanted to. He builds Miramont Castle where he basically is forced to by the radical Protestant Prussian Free Corps agents who were in control of the city at the time. Period. Now, this is where things become really funky regarding the history of the area, because General Palmer, El Palmar, and Margaret Davis Hayes and her family and her army of Confederates were kind of on the same side. It was partially a Confederate versus Union battle from about 1870 forward, but it was also two separate Prussian groups, Free Corps groups, although they both had name changed. One were the Great Awakening movement, and the Southern Free Corps name changed to Confederates under the direction of Andrew Jackson. Well, sort of under the direction of Andrew Jackson. The people who were some of his followers who went hardcore radical regarding the pro-plantation system and such, they pulled away from the Democratic Party. Yes, the Democratic Party was founded on evil principles, but from 1870 to 1920, the party switched platforms. The GOP took on the pro-plantation platform, and the Dems took on the pro-liberty platform, the liberty and justice and progressive and stop doing crimes against humanity and the like. Now, yes, there's no doubt about it that the Democratic Party was founded on evil principles, but in that century, the parties switched platforms. Period.